So today we have the first session, the introduction to the paper or the subject income tax. Uh, it was only for the good of his subjects that he collected taxes from them, just as the sun draws moisture from the earth in order to give back 1,000-fold. Very rightly said by Kalidas in Raghuvansh, eulogizing the king Dalip. There are actually, when we talk about the taxes, broadly, we can say that there are two types of taxes, the direct tax and the indirect tax, of which the incidence and impact fall on the same person, is called the direct tax. Maybe we can say that income tax is one of the best example of that. On the other hand, the tax of which incidence and impact fall on two different persons, it is known as indirect tax, such as maybe sale tax. Previously it was sales tax, now it is GST, etc. Here we can say the difference between the two is that uh, that is, in the case of direct tax, the tax is recovered directly from the SSE itself, who ultimately bears such taxes, whereas in the case of indirect taxes, it is recovered from the SSE who passes such burden to another person. And this burden is ultimately borne by the consumers of such goods and services. That means anybody who is buying those products, they will have to pay for these taxes. So in this paper, or in this subject that we are going to study in detail, is about the first one, that is the direct tax. And direct tax, that is comprehensively we are going to study everything about the income tax of an individual here, or maybe a company, HUF, we are going to study, and partnership firm also, not a company. We are not going to study about company here. So here in this paper, we are going to learn about what are the different components or elements of income that has to be assessed under the Income Tax Act, and the section that governs is Income Tax Act 1961. This is the act that governs this paper. So to introduce this is, that is the Income Tax Act 1961. For understanding this tax, tax law in India, the following components need to be studied very, very carefully. That is, first, Income Tax Act 1961, Annual Finance Acts, Income Tax Rules 1962. Then we have the notification and circulars issued from time to time. It's judicial decisions also. So, to give a brief introduction about this, I can say that the income tax levy in India is governed by the Income Tax Act 1961, which extend to the whole of India and came into force on 1st April 1962. The Act contains 298 sections and 14 schedules. It includes provisions for the determination of taxable income, tax liability, assessment procedure, that is how we are going to assess the different heads of income in detail, the appeals, the penalties, that is what are the penalties and prosecutions, which means that if anybody commits a mistake or is a defaulter in paying the taxes, then how that matter or that person is dealt with, how are the penalties and the punishment determined, what are the process for this. So these are some very, I should say, comprehensive components of the Income Tax Act 1961. Uh, these sections and everything goes under revision every year, and therefore we can say that they undergo changes every year with the additions and deletions which are brought by the Annual Finance Act, which is passed by the Parliament. So this is how we handle and we make amendments, and whatever is required, those changes are incorporated every year. And it is the Central Board of Direct Taxes that looks after the administration of direct tax, and is empowered under Section 295 under Section 295 of the Income Tax Act to make rules for carrying out the purpose of the Act, and thereby it frames various rules from time to time for, I would say, the proper administration of the Income Tax Act 1961, so that everything is implemented and executed in a very, very smooth way. Uh, uh, Initially, these rules were framed in the year 1962, and they are thereby collectively called the Income Tax Rules 1962. And it is important to read these rules along with the Income Tax Act 1961. The power to make rules under this section shall also include the power to give retrospective effect, but not earlier than the date of commencement of this act. However, such retrospective effect shall not be given so as to prejudicially affect the interest of the assessee. So this is a brief introduction about this paper, about this subject, and how we, how we this came into existence and when it came into existence. Next, we move on to the Charge of Income Tax Act. That is income tax. That is Section 4. Actually, the tax cannot be levied or collected in India except under the authority of law. Section 4 of the Income Tax Act 1961, it gives the authority to the central government for charging the income tax. So this is the charging section in the Income Tax Act 1961, which provides that tax shall be charged at the rates which are prescribed for the year by the Annual Finance Act, and the charge is on every person is specified under Section 2 subsection 31. Thirdly, the tax is chargeable on the total income earned during the previous year and not the assessment year. So we can say maybe there are certain exceptions to this provided by Section 172, 174, 174A, 175, and 176. So the tax and the fourth point says that the tax shall be levied in accordance with and subject to the various provisions contained in the Act. So we can say that this section, that is Section 4, is actually the backbone of the law of income tax insofar as because it serves as the most operative provisions of the Act. The tax liability of the person springs from this section. Uh, we will understand it better. It will be more clear when we further move on to understanding the different sections, the different provisions, and we will just check. We will just check on that. Yes, Section 4 remains the backbone of the total law of income tax. Now coming to, before going into more detail, first we will discuss some of the basic terminologies which will be often on used while we are learning this paper, while we are learning this subject. And these are the technical terminologies. They have very specific meaning and use, and therefore we are going to apply them or use them accordingly only. So it becomes very essential that before moving on to further details about the subject, we will first discuss few of the important terminologies or terms that will be used here and there. So first, we will discuss. For the first comes is the assessment year. Actually, it is, the calendar year that is to be used for assessing the income for the purpose of taxes. It is the financial year, and the financial year always begins from 1st April, and it goes for till 31st of March. So that makes it a full financial year, that calendar of 12 months. So we can say that here the assessment year refers to the 12 months commencing from 1st of April every year, and it ends on 31st of March. So the whatever the total income is earned by the SSE during this year, uh, we can say during the previous year, means prior to this year, shall be chargeable to tax in the next year, which is called as the assessment year. Let me explain you with the help of an example. But before that, let us go to the next one, that is the previous year. Here, we can say, because we can here understand it with the example. The previous year, it is the section 3 that explain the previous year. The previous year is the year in which the income is earned. It remains the same financial year, 1st April to 31st of March. So this is the 12 months year where the income is earned. That is, it is the financial year immediately preceding the assessment year. It is called the previous year. The tax will be paid on such income in the next year, which is called the assessment year. So this means that the tax is levied on the income in the year, in levied on in the year in which it is earned. It is referred to as the previous year, and the tax on which the income will be paid in the assessment year. Okay, so all the assessees are required to follow a uniform previous year. So it becomes uniformly throughout India. We follow it starting from 1st of April till 31st of March. Now here, let me explain you how it goes like this. For example, a person who earned his income from 1st of April of 2024 till 2025. Now, throughout the year, he has been into various activities. Maybe he is a salaried class, maybe he is a businessman, and he is earning his income. Now, he all the activities, business or service activity, they keep on. Maybe he has let out his property, so he's earning the income from house property. Then maybe he has sold some of his assets. He is having the capital gain. So this way he has various numerous activities, which financial activities, which continues throughout the year. Suppose if the year block is 2024 to 2025, which means it began from 1st of April 2024 till 31st of March 2025. Now all these activities, and at the end of the financial year, that is on in the month of March 2025, this person is going to can all this person is going to calculate his total income, and obviously, and then he will calculate his tax liability. So the year complete on 31st of March of 2025. It will be only after that that he will be able to pay the taxes, because only after 31st of March he will know what was his income throughout that year. So the year in which he has been earning his income will be the previous year, and the year when he is paying the taxes on that income which was earned during the previous year, and that will be the year he will not be only paying the taxes, but he will also be calculating his taxes. He will be, assessing his income tax. That year will be called the assessment year. I hope I am clear this, and let us we have an example before us. So let us just go through this. That is for the assessment year 2024, the immediate preceding, and it is always immediate. That word is very important. Immediate preceding financial year, that is 2023-24. This will be called as the previous year. So income earned by an individual during the previous year 2023-24 will be taxable immediately following the assessment year 2024-25, whatever the rates are applicable for that assessment year, that is 24 and 25. So this way, I hope now that the difference between the previous year and the assessment year is clear to all of you. Similarly, we can say that income earned during the previous year 2024-25 by a company will be taxable in the assessment year 2025-26 at the rates which whatever are applicable for the assessment year 25-26, and it goes on like this again and again. Every year in which the income is earned will be the previous year, and the year in which, that is next uh, succeeding year, will be called the assessment year, because in that year all the income will be assessed, taxes will be assessed, and taxes will be paid. So this is all about the previous year and the assessment year. After that, next we have what are the exceptions to the general rules of the income of the previous year, which is taxed in its assessment year. What are the exceptions? That is how where these rules do not apply. This is the general rule that the income of the previous year of an SSE is charged to taxes in the, we can say, immediately following or immediately next assessment year. However, there are some cases, there are some situations where the income of the previous year will be assessed in the same year in order to ensure a very smooth collection of income tax from the taxpayers, who may not be traceable if the assessment year is postponed till the commencement of the assessment year. So these are some of the situations where they are assessed in the same year. One first point is, the first case is situation is the income of non-residential SSE from the shipping business. The section that handles it is section 172. So any SSE who is from the shipping background, that is, he is running his business in shipping, and he is also a non-resident. What is non-resident? This we will be learning in the next topic. Upcoming topics, where you will very clearly understand who is a resident and who is a non-resident and how they are assessed. So income of the shipping business, in if the case is a non-resident SSE. Secondly, income of a person who is leaving India either permanently or for a very, very long period. So we never know, because if he is leaving the country immediately, so whatever income he has earned in that block, he has to first submit all his taxes only then, and therefore he will be the authorities, or he is not supposed, the SSE is not supposed to wait for the next year to be the assessment year. He is assessed then and there, pay off your tax liability, and then he may move on. And the section that deals with this is section number 174. Then we have the incomes of bodies which are formed for a very short duration. Short duration for certain specific purpose, and once they comply or they complete that purpose, or they achieve the objective for whatever they have been formed, then they have to be assessed then and there. So if they are formed for a very short duration, then they are assessed in the same assessment year. It is section 174A that deals with this kind of assessment. Then we have the income of a person who is likely to transfer the property to avoid the taxes. of a person who is likely to transfer the property in order to avoid the taxes. Again, we will be learning more in detail about this, but for just now, you may understand that anyone who is transferring the property, maybe in the name of his spouse, or maybe the name of his in the name of his kids or relatives, just to avoid the taxes, that is section 175 handles it, and there the assessment year takes place in the same year. Fifth situation is income of a discontinued business. Discontinued business here will mean that maybe you are winding up, that person who is running that business is closing it down, maybe because of heavy losses, or maybe he is shifting from one place to another, or maybe he is switching over to another business. There can be any reason, but whenever, as he is discontinuing or winding it up or closing it down, this he will be assessed. It depends upon the situation also. He will be assessed then and there, and it is in this case the assessing officer has the discretionary power, because he may use his judgment that whether this situation should be assessed just now, or can be carried forward. Maybe if he's switching over to different businesses, and maybe if they're closing their books of account and everything, maybe he knows his tax liability, and that can be paid then and there, before waiting for the next year to be the assessment year. So again, it is the assessing officer who will decide, after understanding the nature, the reasons, and all the details. He will decide whether that same year will be taken up as the assessment year. So he may, maybe he may assess the income in the same previous year, or maybe he waits for another year to be the assessment year. He uses his judgment, because he is there to closely interrogate everything, all the transactions, everything, and then decide accordingly. So these are some of the exceptions that should be known to us while deciding the assessment year and the previous year. Not too many, obviously, only 4-5 situations are there, so we must keep them in mind. Coming to person, we have been talking about SSE. SSE is the person, or let us say that how do we decide that on whom the tax liability is? Is it a single individual? Is it a corporate sector? Is it a partnership firm? It can be any identity on whom the tax liability has to be fixed, or on whom the tax assessment has to be done. So this is how we defined the SSE is the person here, and it is section 2 subsection 31 that handles this. As the income tax is levied on the total income of the previous year of every person, it becomes very important that we do not ignore this term, the person. The term person includes maybe 7 categories, which are there before you on the screen. It can be an individual, as I said, it can be a Hindu undivided family. Actually, Hindu undivided family means the family business, which is very prominent in India, very popular in India. That is the traditional business, which is run by the family members only. So anybody born in that family becomes the member of that business also. That is called the Hindu undivided family business. So a Hindu undivided family in together, that business can be called person under the Income Tax Act. It can be a company, a corporate body, a corporate sector. It may be a firm. It may be an association of persons or body of individuals. AOP or BOI here, it means that it can be some people coming together, group of people coming together, or some individuals, they come together in order to start a business run that business for the motive of earning the profit. So, and they are registered accordingly. So, this is also a sort of, a business which is run by a few number of people together. It's not an individual business. It is, this. An individual business is also called a sole proprietorship. But this association of person and BOI, they are different from partnership firm. There are different legalities attached to these different identities. Then we may call a local authority, because a local authority also is supposed to be registered under the Income Tax Act, and this local authority can also be called a person. It can be every artificial juridical person not falling within any of the preceding subclause, example maybe a university or a deity, etc. So we can say that as per this section, that is section 2, subsection 31, as per this section, the explanation can go like that an AOP, that is Association of Persons, or BOI, that is Body of Individual, or the local authority, or any artificial juridical person shall be deemed to be a person. We can conclude this here. Irrespective, we have to keep in mind that it is irrespective of whatever they were formed or established with the purpose of earning or maybe deriving profits or not, because most of the businesses, they have the main objective of profit earning. Maybe it is a sole proprietor, a partnership firm, a Hindu undivided family, or maybe it can be your association of person, but yes, maybe local authority, or maybe an non-profit organization. They do not go for only and only profit motive. They have other objectives also. So this is what or how we define a person as. So because this person is alternatively is also called SSE, or we will use the terminology SSE and person alternatively. So this is about person. So in this session, we discuss this much. We'll continue on to the terminology which will be used in the income tax as per Income Tax Act 1961 in the next session also. Thank you very much.